the 9,000.
Yeah, it's mountain,
budgeted,
so we're.
or the reserve that we
You
had
like
for
that.
reserve.
Yeah,
tax.
yeah. I mean, the hours are
That over
flexible.
from there to the.
Well, that's good.
The summertime came a bit lighter than, but now that they're open during the summer, it's got.
Because that's what I took the day off.
Where they write the list and.
Yep. And they got a, what do they call it, frisbee golf.
I can go,
Yeah.
yeah, I can go bring it
Frisbee golf.
for you guys.
Would you
Once
go
let
print
out,
off,
get off.
go ahead and
It's
do
all the way
6
down.
copies, double-sided this
In
one.
fact, this
You
weekend
want
is
revenues
the
and
closing
expenditure,
weekend,
or
we're
revenues
having
and
a tournament.
Probably just expenditures.
And a live band out there.
No.
I mean, at least,
Yeah.
no, they're just right.
And the worksheet, not
Here's
the,
two
not
there.
the spreadsheet.
But it's good that they're using the mountain year round.
Big stuff.
The Word document.
It's never
Yeah.
figured why you don't.
Yeah.
But
And I was gonna do it here if you wanna stay, but I can do it.
I lived
Okay.
in Colorado, and asked, I was with the city county.
All right, your meeting is live when, council, or
Yes.
committee chair.
Ronning.
It is running, okay. I was checking. I didn't wanna,
Okay,
I didn't want the wrath of Chris if I was wrong.
I know. Great. Okay. Oh, so I'll call the meeting to order. Doug, we did approve your minutes last time and they were perfect, thank you. That's exactly what we needed, so if
Okay.
you would continue doing that, that
Okay.
would be wonderful. I will correct the spelling of your name and, yeah, that was me being in a hurry. So I will get those corrected for our next minutes if you guys, if you are okay with
I like that it got corrected to running.
I know. I know.
But the response only went to her, I meant to send it to the whole group, or running.
I know, I think you did. Yeah, so I will correct those. So if you guys are okay with those minutes, I will go ahead and,
Yes.
okay, I'll get those
I don't
corrections
have
done.
to-
Just those okay. All right, those are approved. So mainly, the budget is what we're gonna talk about today. And then I did make some changes to the business registration fee, so,
And what is in the packet is the most current? Is that-
yeah, it should be. But first, do you have any comments that you'd like to make? We can do public comment first if you'd like.
On anything in the world?
Anything in the world, yes.
Having to do with administration and finance.
The
Yes,
floor is
of the
yours.
city government,
Well,
yeah.
I don't know if what I'm interested in has, I guess it's administration, but not, maybe finance, I don't know. Would that be like, VRBOs?
Sure.
So I've lived in towns where VRBOs destroyed the town because there were too many of them. It became a VRBO town because the owners weren't there and they didn't, you know, and there are other towns that are smaller towns since that I looked into that actually the owner of a VRBO has to live in that VRBO for a certain amount of time to have that as a VRBO, which means they care about the town, you
Right.
know, and that's what happened to Aspen when I lived there 100 years ago. Almost 100, a long time.
Are you
ago.
174
Yeah.
now? Good job. You look great.
But anyway, I saw that happen, and it was sad, you know, I mean, all the old people moved out of town, and, because they couldn't afford to live in the town, and, what did Dave say, they want all the old people out of town? He was
Yeah.
kidding, of course, but, you know, it happens, and there are ways that we can learn. All I suggest is let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's look at what's been done and been tried and been successful and failed. Because I've been around, I worked in all those communities, travel around to them, like Steamboat, and, you know, the smaller communities, Crested Butte, Aspen, obviously Snowmass was a huge one. And so I've lived through that, and I don't want to see it happen to Red Lodge.
Yeah.
And I know he said that you couldn't break a tie at 15%, is that correct? He said,
What?
yeah, that's what he said.
No, it was 20.
Well, we
went to
But we
20.
originally had
20.
15%,
Yeah.
but nobody, it was like,
Nobody wanted to do that. If I'd been in town.
I shouldn't say nobody.
Yeah.
Half of us wanted to do it, half of us didn't.
Well, if
Right.
I'd been here, I would have brought all my data and all my research from towns that went up too high on that, and I would have turned one vote, I'm guaranteeing you that. But
Well-
I'm out of town a lot,
Yeah.
is the problem.
What's your name?
Janie Sowers,
Janie Stars?
yeah.
Nice to meet you.
S-O-U-R-S, but I'm
Um,
sweet, not sour.
So what would you like to see? 'Cause we do have some, we have gone through a lot of stuff in the last year for short-term
Mhm.
rentals and did establish a threshold of 20% of
Right.
homes, which we haven't met. And, just curious what your thoughts are on where that should be, or.
Well, I like
How-
15 myself,
Mhm.
okay, and, you know, there are the other parts of that other towns have done to get owners to be vested in the community that they own property in, that are never there. And you know what I'm talking about, you know, like the gravel pit, for example. You know, it was marketed to VRBOs because of clearing
Right.
snow and taking care of the yard in the summer. So that's a no-brainer that it's a VRBO.
Right, that's how it was marketed,
Exactly, and now he's building some more, I understand, down on Adams, another 60 units.
and that's a different,
Is that a different?
it's a different, owner.
Oh, it is a
Oh, I
different.
thought it was the same guy.
No,
I
it
thought
was
so.
the same builder, but it's a different owner.
Oh, okay.
Same builder, different
Yeah.
owner. I thought it was the same owner, but I don't, you know,
I don't
why
think
I'm
they're
here.
the same owner. I could be wrong, I'm not sure, I thought that.
I thought it was the same owner, same. But anyway,
Might be.
so I see that happening. And, you know, I know we need the revenue, but we also really desperately need to keep our community intact. And that's the part that I have the most anxiety over.
I know. Well, and a lot of what was put into, they worked really hard, land use and planning did, you were on that, on developing that ordinance and the rules and the guidelines that were put in place, the good neighbor policies, you know, and then, of course, the cap was a big part of it.
Threshold.
The threshold, yeah, cap, threshold,
Right,
the threshold,
right.
is that what we call it, a threshold?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, so it was all there, and then we have the installing the hotline, we have the software to track how many we actually have, so people aren't flying under the radar. You know, as soon as they put it out there on VRBO or Airbnb, it hits our software, so we can track it right away.
So they can't, they have to put it online though, right?
Right.
That's how you track it. So if it's not online, then,
Well, if it's not online, they're gonna have a really tough,
I don't know, there's a lot of people that come back every year and they rent those. They're not going to the, you know, and so that would happen before you set the ordinance and the cap. So, you know, there's a
Well,
lot of people that.
and we
need to-
also, you know, they have to have their, health and safety inspections now, their fire inspections.
I
You know,
think
they
there's
go
been
through
a
a
huge,
increase.
huge, positive impact from all that stuff that we went through
Yeah,
last year.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we were trying to give it like a year, which we're at now, to see how things go. And what we're going to be doing, just so you know, is reviewing the ordinance, where we're at with the threshold. And, you know, and if some of those, you know, if it's doing what we want it to do
Mhm.
at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
You know,
you
that's
weigh
how
on
we,
that. I wish I'd been, you know, if I'd been, when was that?
That was, last
all last
spring,
year.
basically.
Yeah, in summer.
And then I
It,
think the
it
ordinance
passed in the
passed
fall.
So it was in the last summer?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, spring, summer.
Yeah, I'm gone all the winter, and then I've been gone, I've had a couple deaths, so I was gone like 8 months, you
Oh,
know,
wow.
2 years
Yeah.
ago, and then 7 months, and.
Well, if you're around in 2 weeks, it should be on the agenda in 2 weeks,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to get back to it, so, because we promised a review of it,
Yeah,
and so we
Well,
need
that would be
to, that will
cool,
be our
I'd
next.
like that. What's your name?
Chris,
Chris.
Keys.
Chris
Yep, Keys,
Key.
Keys,
Oh,
like your car.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
And I've heard your name before, Chris. Don't ask me where.
Hopefully in a good way.
I know, right?
So you worked on that, and did you look at other, other towns when you looked at that? Did you see what they had done?
Yeah.
There was actually a short-term rental advisory committee that was, established, and they looked at a lot of things.
Okay.
And then they made recommendations.
But was that one of the things they did, is look at other towns?
Yeah.
Because I know I made a recommendation, and it doesn't have to do with this, but it has to do with recycling. And I went to Whitefish and checked out their recycling, what they did and what they tried for 5 years.
Hey, Denise.
And what didn't happen, what didn't work and what did work, and we did it anyway, you know, and it was just like, what? You know, they've been through this already. So I just really believe in not reinventing the wheel. I think should be a really important aspect of looking into some of these things, because it
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
And it is, it's powerful, it's strong, and it saves us so much. And, but it is time to do that, it takes time to do that. People like me could do it, you know, if I were here, I would delve into that and go visit those towns and find out, you know, or talk to the right people, which I did in that case. But it didn't do any good, so. But I would like to, in 2 weeks, I'll come back, but I don't know what good that will do, what, you know, you're
Well,
gonna
it might
talk-
answer a lot of your questions, because if I think you're just entering it now, and there's a lot of background
Right,
stuff that we've already done
Done,
that
yeah.
you might appreciate.
yeah, right,
So, yeah, and we'd love your input if you've lived in some of those towns.
yeah.
For
And
what?
so, when you did your presentation to the whole board that was deciding on that, did they say why they, you know, you came to you couldn't, you went to 20 because you couldn't make a decision on it? And-
Well, there was, the reason why, I was the person that voted for the 20 versus the 15. I was that person. And all of the data that was shown said that a town's character was not significantly damaged until you reached 23%. And so the 20% was a compromise.
Right,
So, because we didn't have the data to back up the 15. So, that was my compromise.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I will come to that, and the way I look at that, just real quickly, and then I'll get out of your hair,
Yeah.
is that if you go to 15, you're there, you can always grow. It's kind of
That
like,
was my thought
Yes,
too.
yeah.
kind of
So,
like selling something,
Yeah.
you know, you
Yeah.
put a price on it, you can always drop it.
yeah, I'll move up or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so that's real, and a huge thing, I think, and check it out, you can always raise it, but you can't take it back, you know? So I agree with you on that, totally.
Yes,
Yeah.
Dave.
Wasn't one of the things that I think you were looking at too, though, is having to do with the classification and,
Right.
like, 'cause there's some people, there's a lot of, I mean, there's always been people who've been part-timers in Red Lodge.
Yes.
And you were looking at if there's people who do it like less than 30 days a year total, are they really changing the character of the town? I don't know if it
Right.
was 14 days or what.
No, it
but-
was more like if someone lives here all year long and, they decide that 2 months out of the year, they wanna go south for the winter.
Right,
Them renting their house out as a short-term rental when they're gone is not necessarily
what we're talking about.
right, but right now, they're included in that cap.
Uh-huh.
So, you know, that, it's kind of more fine-tuning those categories, I guess, more than anything. And
Yeah.
it's giving you the opportunity, like, if you don't wanna be here the month of July because it's crazy in Red Lodge, and you decide, you know, for that month, you wanna rent out your house as a vacation rental to people to stay, should that
You can
count
afford to
again?
live here.
Yeah, so you can afford, you know, so then, you know, yes, you're still gonna have to get the fire inspection, you're still gonna have to get the the registration, you're still gonna have to,
Right,
get the health inspection,
right.
but, you know, should,
Where
if-
is
if-
that?
And pay the
and business registration fee.
Yeah.
But if we reach that cap, they're no longer going to be able to do that.
Right.
So, and another thing to think about is, I've lived here.
When we reach the cap, that
When-
will happen, I
Yes,
guarantee.
yeah, and I've lived here since 1987, and Red Lodge has always been a city, a town of second homeowners. Typically, 30% of our housing is second homes. So,
And
what,
sitting empty.
and sitting empty. So, there is that side of it too, you know, we're different than other towns in the fact that we've always had this vacancy, because short-term rentals are considered as vacant homes when they're talking about that as well.
Right,
So to me, it's more about the overall picture, because you can't stop people from buying a second home, you know? So there's
Nor do
just,
we want to.
and nor do we want to, but at the same time, so allowing the people, those 30%, to be able to rent them out and creating the economy of those people coming to town and staying and shopping and eating, you know, and paying resort tax, which helps fund our city, you know, you don't want to stop that. So,
Just a fine
it,
balance.
it's just a very
Oh,
fine
yeah.
balance,
You've got
absolutely.
employee housing issues. I
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I know.
and second homeowners are not gonna rent their houses out
No,
to employee,
no,
for
no.
employee housing anyway, so
No.
we're always gonna have, Red Lodge is always gonna have up to, ever since I've been here, a 30% vacancy
Mm.
in homes. So, it's just making it so that the short-term rentals aren't pushing it up to 50%, I guess, you know, or,
So here's an
I guess
interesting,
it's
I spent last weekend in Silvergate,
Oh, me too.
and, so you got Silvergate and Gardner down there,
Cook City.
Cook City, sorry. Their population, Gardner's official census population is 77.
Cook City, you mean?
Cook City is, thank you. I'm a-
Silvergate?
And Silvergate is, I think, 60. I'm here to tell you, there's a heck of a lot. They're probably more like 80%
I'm sure they are.
that is short-term rentals down there. I mean, I was staying in the Silvergate in the back, and that town would be dead.
Oh, it is all winter.
It wouldn't exist if not for that. And it's interesting, and Red Lodge is one of those. We were a mining town.
Right?
You know, if you go back and look at our census data, going back to 1920, we're
Oh,
still
yeah.
at half of what we were.
Yeah, well, we used to have
Well,
10,000 people, yeah.
Well, I don't remember.
Bear Creek
much
had
more
like
than-
10,
Yeah,
Bear Creek had
was-
10,000 people, and we weren't far behind them,
yeah, yeah, no.
back in the
But-
heyday of the
Right,
mining.
in the day.
Yeah.
In the heyday.
And then the other part of that goes back to what is the problem you're trying to solve and what are you addressing? You've talked about changing the community or the direction of it, but, you know, if you go to employee housing or you go to, you know, short-term or this is not stuff that's unique to Red Lodge right now. I think one of my frustrations with it, and don't get me wrong, I listen, in fact, it was, my wife and I were joking last night that she was gonna, well, you know, it'd be fun if it was Dave and Kristen running against each other, you know, me and my wife were both running for mayor, because there's some of these things that we have different viewpoints on or
Yeah.
different conversations, but one of my things is just, I like tapping into that data that you mentioned, because we, I don't mean this wrong, but we're not as unique as we'd like to think we are
Not-
in a lot of ways and
No.
times. This
No.
is, and going to your comment, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. and-
No,
That's the important part right
And,
there.
Yeah.
and then what stuff is it we're gonna do that actually solves the problems, changes the problems, versus which part of it is the universal truth of local government? Everybody's fine with everything so long as it's not in their backyard. And everybody who moves here, every single person, my wife's on the list, wants them to pull up the drawbridge and close the gate behind it, but not let another person into town.
yeah,
No,
But at the same time, the things that we
Yeah.
like about this town,
Yeah,
the restaurants that are there, look at all the facilities we have that are a byproduct of the fact that we are a resort tax. We collect more in resort tax than we do in property tax.
right. So we have families here though too,
mhm,
and that's a huge part of what I see as Red Lodge. You know, the things we do for kids and the things we do for families, and Doug and I were
And
just
parks
talking about.
and swimming pool,
Yeah,
guess what? That's
the
resort
thing.
tax dollars at work.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I,
We want all your money, we just don't want you to hear it. Just send us a check.
So you telling you can't do that without the resort tax,
Right now,
No.
100% of our parks is paid out of resort tax.
your parks,
Our swimming pool
Oh,
is paid out of
well-
resort tax.
right?
skate park,
Yeah, so.
street,
That's an unusual
sewer, the
thing.
plowing,
A three,
yeah.
oh, what, I don't know what that pool cost, but it was millions, right?
We
$2 million.
paid
How much?
about half of it, we paid about $1 million,
Yeah,
and then volunteers paid $1.5 million.
yeah, so 2.5.
But that's
That's
100% out
But
of
it's maintenance.
resort tax.
Is
Right,
expensive
but that's
too.
unique
Yeah,
to a
operations.
town this size. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Laurel's bigger and it's close to Billings and people that live both places. I'm not including Laurel. I'm including places that are more isolated like Red Lodge.
Yeah,
That's what you have to look at.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
don't, you know, do we need all that? I mean, are those things the most important thing for us to have in Red Lodge? You know?
well,
look at-
according
I
to
did-
our poll for spending the resort tax money, yes, the swimming pool was number one.
Right,
So,
okay.
so that's why we did it,
Right.
and that's why our resort tax
Yeah,
went to it.
and it's full all the time.
It is, yeah,
Local
yeah,
kids,
yeah,
not tourists.
Well, no,
And
there's
adults.
tours,
And, yeah, right, and moms and dads.
but a lot of, second homeowners, our neighbor across the street from my mom and dad, she would come up in the summers and her kids took lessons there because they loved Red Lodge. I mean, they,
Sure.
you know, so yeah, and tourists, they go when
They're
it's
here
super
for the
hot.
summer, for the
No,
summer.
but
That's
tourists
the
go there too. There's lots of day passes and things like that.
Right,
that
right,
go,
but I'm
so,
saying
yeah.
they come up for the summer and spend the summer in Red Lodge.
Well, yeah,
That's not what we're
throughout the year.
talking about. We're
But if
talking-
you look at other gateway communities, Yellowstone, like Gardner and, West Yellowstone, and I know it's not apples to apples, but I would imagine that they have way higher, short-term rentals.
Oh,
And
yeah, we can't compare to
I mean, you
West
can't-
Yellowstone.
you can't even go to a restaurant in Gardner because you never know
I
who's
know
gonna be
that.
open.
But we have to compare it to apples to apples.
Yeah, I don't think there is an apple that
But
is
there
Red
is,
Lodge.
it's just not maybe in Montana.
we did a lot of comparisons to Whitefish,
Okay,
yeah,
Good.
because they.
And Telluride and Moab, and so
Yeah.
it's things that are very, very similar. Towns that
those towns,
ceased to exist until we hit this new economy.
yeah.
Travel used to be a luxury item. It was
Yeah.
only the uppity-ups that went, and now, and
Well,
I,
it still is, you know what an airplane ticket costs now? At a hotel?
Yeah.
that's why people drive to Red Lodge from around Montana.
Right,
But yeah, so we are, we will at our next meeting be,
Talk about it more.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we're basically, gonna, number one, where are we at with the cap? Reviewing those categories, and we need to also, codify it, the ordinance, so that it actually changes our code.
So it's actually in our municipal code.
Yes,
yeah.
so those are where
Yeah,
we're at,
and-
so.
And, like, I agree with her, you can go up, but you can't go back, you know, you
Yeah.
can't go down. So, those are the things, I'd like us to grow slowly, so we can see what's working and what isn't working, and then, go from there. So
Thank
anyway,
you.
I appreciate you.
Yes,
and
thank
everything
you.
for
do
coming in.
And all your time.
Yes, thank you.
I do, because it's important, and I value that.
Thank you.
That's what makes Red Lodge. So I'll be here in
Thank you,
what,
Jenny.
2
We'll see you in
weeks?
a couple
Two,
weeks.
yes,
I'll have
yep,
to.
so second,
And I
second,
your friend
apologize for
with
giving you
Dave's
bad
mom?
information.
What?
You're friends with Dave's mom?
Well, yeah, I'd say that.
Well, I dropped my mom off at her house for the parade while I went and did things, so I'm not sure what they talked about in the
Yeah.
background. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah. I really liked her. She's really nice. I'd like her back. Maybe before next July. So anyway.
Well, nice to meet you.
Yeah, you take care.
See you, Jamie, thank you.
thank
Thanks for
you.
letting me, talk.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
Okay, so, we're gonna, I don't know, did you guys get a chance to review, I'm just skipping down to this resolution 3622, because it's up for vote tonight,
Mhm.
the amended, business registration. Did you get a chance to review that? Basically, I just changed some of the categories so that, you know, we have the nonprofits in category one now, regardless of what they sell. I'm just trying to find it. I thought I had it printed. I'll pull it up on my phone.
It is on page,
Sorry.
it's way at the end of this long.
Printed everything else out. I thought I printed it out.
The majority of all of it.
Yeah.
There it is. I do have it. Okay.
Agenda.
So anyway, so business one is, I did change these titles of the categories as well to better fit what we were saying, because we had prepared food as one of the, for tier 3, and that's not what it is.
Food prepared on site.
Yeah, but it's, so general services and retail, it's contractors, businesses that provide a personal, and I added professional service. So, you know, your accountants, your banks, your, mortgage brokers, your insurance agents, anybody with a professional title, retail businesses, home-based businesses, and all nonprofits regardless of items sold. And then temporary vendors, of course, didn't change. Tier 3, I changed the title of that to all other. So it's lodging and accommodation, including but not limited to hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, and short-term rentals. I didn't change that. But then I just changed how this was, the sentence structure and the other. So it didn't, so all restaurants, gas stations, grocery stores, convenience stores, taverns, liquor stores, marijuana dispensaries, smoke and or vape shops, and any business or temporary vendor that sells food and or drinks prepared on site. So, and then, so can you think of anything by wording that, that's going to put someone in tier 3 that we didn't need to be in tier 3?
I think you did a really good job. I don't,
Okay,
yeah, I think it's based on what we talked last meeting. I
okay,
think you nailed it.
okay. So, I'm like,
But somebody will come up with something, it's probably gonna be Dave.
I know, I know, I know.
No, considering how many options there are, you did a great
Yeah,
job of
'cause-
summarizing it. Because
Okay.
there's always gonna be exceptions to the rule.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we really wanted to protect the nonprofits.
profit,
Yep.
And then the
Right.
people who are selling candy bars and
yeah,
things like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
important, yeah.
All those exceptions, I think, are covered now. And
Okay.
then, so you're gonna refund people once this passes?
Yeah, we'll figure out, there won't be very many, but we'll.
Right.
Be a handful.
yeah,
Well, they'll be happy.
yeah.
And they
Okay,
might just say, oh, keep it.
okay.
No.
So I will, I can introduce this at tonight's meeting if you like, and, okay, and so budget. We'll
Budget.
go on to budget and
Hold on, let me
do,
go to,
Thank you, Jody, for doing that.
yeah,
let me go to my council notes. So that is going to be, Jody who's going to introduce that.
yes. Do we have any more, warrants payable that need to be signed? Are we good?
That was just that one.
Okay. I just, Cynthia texted me and I'm like,
I was
nope,
all
she's
ready to
good.
do it today,
I
too.
know.
Oh, right.
Yeah, 'cause I got someone to cover me today at work, so
Yeah, no, we'll do them again at the next.
I'll be busy. No, just kidding. May or may not.
Okay.
Can't wait for summer to be in.
So
I never listen.
by way of information, not necessarily related directly to budget nor to audit, but the auditors are here this week, helping with year-end closeout stuff. And so it's basically just to help us make sure that we close things out and ideally, hopefully avoid, repeat audit
Any-
findings
Any
certainly. or-
footnotes?
Well, yeah, to kind of address things and make sure we're doing it. And did you have anything you wanted to add to kind of that
Year-end
there?
stuff is just, having to do whatever adjustments we have to do within the system and stuff. It, they don't dive into,
It's not an audit,
no,
yeah.
no, it's just helping make, the entries that we need to do to close out the year. Because then I have to do an annual report and stuff, and all those entries and stuff, and cleaning up makes that possible.
And that's what they'll then do the audit on, and,
Yeah, so they'll
their
do
findings.
audit, in February, I think is when we're scheduled for our audit. And they'll come back and, but yeah, it's just mainly what they do is like any kind of entries that need to be done within the system and stuff. So.
and then you were gonna ask them, this is somewhat related, but you were gonna ask them about the sustainability line item.
Which Dave and I did talk to them about that on the phone.
Yeah, and it had to do, and my recollection is they didn't have an opinion, so
Yeah.
there is, and this kind of goes into a question, did you find what page resort tax is, just for,
yeah.
It's on 9.
I'm on
Page
page
nine.
9.
It's, I think it's page 10 that, where we put the sustainability.
11.
Yeah, so what we did is it's a
10 and
separate
11.
line item underneath parks, I want to say is what we ended up doing with it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep, sustainability
Yeah, part
projects,
sustainability
improvements,
project, yeah.
314.
that was a request from, Mike to have it in its own line item.
So
Okay.
I had actually proposed and considered at one point, and I'll explain my logic behind it. I had considered, making it basically a parks and a sustainability thing. So part of the item, part of the discussion is, sustainability is ultimately a part of the conversation that we have with everything. that-
Right.
Philosophy.
We're
Yeah,
buying
yeah.
a new vehicle,
Yeah, yeah.
the whole idea is it's really a philosophy. In the past, they have had $1,000 that was earmarked sustainability, and it kind of had the same issues of the Parks Board, in that they thought it was their money to spend, and they don't have, they don't spend money, the city spends money. They are an input, if you break that down into a responsibilities chart or a,
Right,
or like a ratio metrics, they're an input. I had, and part of it, I had wanted to combine it with, parks and sustainability, because I wanted that to be part of the same discussion. I didn't want it to balloon up, and I wanted them to be able to make decisions back and forth between it. Mike's preference was to not combine that. Part of that is containment. Let me choose my words politically
Yeah.
and correctly.
Yeah.
Part of that was containment. And so with that in mind, Lonnie found a separate line item. And so it's just improvements. It's still within parks, but it's trackable separately from parks. So it's really kind of a compromise. The other thing you'll note is that this is underneath resort tax, which does start on the top of page 9.
right.
So, and I think, Doug, you had some specific questions kind of on resort tax as well. And to the best of my knowledge, that section on page 10, that new line item, is that the only difference from last time? Is that, and that's a new line item, so it actually changes the whole spreadsheet by virtue that it's there. So this is the stuff that's the only difference between this and what we saw 2 weeks ago, is that difference is on page 10.
Thanks for putting all the little explanations in, that's super helpful, not only for me, but,
With being able to do the notes and stuff.
yeah.
Right.
So just to,
Yeah,
because I've done that in other places.
yeah.
So,
A good way to.
were you able to, answer or find out the answers to, like, the city court and his 200% increase in office supplies and materials? And did you ever have a conversation with him on that?
I have had a conversation with him in the way of coaching. Again, it did not take the form of micromanaging his budget. That does not, constrain, or what's the word I'm looking for, that does not take away, council's ability to edit this budget in any way, shape, or form. That's so.
So we can
So-
do that tonight?
You could say, I move to change this budget from there without without an additional explanation. I move to adjust this back to what it was last year, or something like that. Now,
Yeah.
there's a danger in that we also, so my approach and my goal is, one of the things that, if you look at this page, and as we were looking at it, going through it last week, you'll notice that it starts out with the current budget item, which is in reality last year's budget.
Right, yes.
And then you can see, next to that, you can also see, the expense of how much has been spent or where we were on it, and I'm losing it right now. So you've got the budget
Expended.
on the final column, and then the line before is the actual.
Right,
So
the
one of the things that
1351.
we're gonna be doing going forward into the new year is we'll be printing this and giving this and reviewing and managing all department heads to this, which does not mean that it's going to be a linear line, right? You're not gonna spend 1/12 of it every month, because that's not the way that these budgets work.
Right, no.
But we'll be able to sit down with the judge, to use Chris's example, and say, here's how much is allotted for the year, here's where we are. That's above or below the linear. Do you understand why? Do you understand your budget? Because we have some folks that haven't necessarily been in charge of handling a budget before. And so we should be able to look at this expenditures on a monthly basis and manage to it better. Are you above, are you below, are you where it's there? Now, if we guess wrong, so let's take Chris's example. Let's say council says, I move to change this amount from 1,000 down to 500, or to some smaller number. Absolutely, council's right, can do that. Now, if we end up going over it, then we can do a budget amendment as is necessary. Now, we don't necessarily have to, because as long as each one of these funds ends up at the right amount, there's a little bit of shifting that goes
Mhm.
in between those that can be there.
Well, and
But absent any explanations,
I know, I think that's just
And-
it.
and I have
If it's
asked-
actually needed, that's fine, you know, but,
like if
you know,
you need a new
there was,
computer,
And-
yeah.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
have asked all the department heads, to be at the meeting tonight.
Okay.
There's a couple of them that were not at our staff meeting yesterday, so I'll follow up, although I did mention it to the judge, I did mention it to the attorney. Now, so let's kind of add an extension to that. So the way this is gonna work tonight, is we've started out with a budget presentation, which honestly, I don't know quite what that's gonna look like yet, how in-depth, I know it's not gonna be in-depth as what I would like it to be, and what I will
Who's
still,
giving that?
that's me.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
So me
You're not sure.
me, comma, corrected, yeah, you were, Jody, didn't you get that memo?
I know.
Me,
I talked
comma,
last meeting.
Me,
I'm like,
me,
it's all
comma,
you.
corrected by Lonnie, will give a presentation of the budget
Okay,
before we open it up for public comment.
Okay.
It's basically just enough that, it'll go presentation of the budget, public comment, which is a statutory requirement. We'll close public comment, we'll bring it back to the table. You guys can ask and discuss whatever you'd like to, and that's when the department heads are gonna be there. It is not going to be, public discussion. It is not gonna be public Q&A. It's kind of the same thing as public comments, right? This is the public's
Right.
opportunity to A, be heard, and B, witness the public process. It's not a discussion, it's not a debate, they aren't you, right? You guys are the legislative body. We'll close the public discussion, it'll then come back to the legislative body. I've asked the department heads to be there, so if there are specific questions that you guys want
We
to go
can
back
ask
and
of
ask,
them.
that you will be able to ask that of those times so that you can do that. And they've been told, you may need to defend your budget and say, here's the why and here's the that,
yeah.
and go along with that.
Well, I mean, obviously, $1,000 is not going to break our budget. It's just that it went up 200% over last year. And, you know, why? What are you planning on buying that, you know, this year that you didn't buy last year? I mean, I guess that's just the question.
And to a certain extent, part of the reason that I didn't micromanage it is if our bottom lines match up, and we don't automatically, we don't like spend it or lose it, we don't have that mentality. Like right now, we have a computer in there for the mayor. Right now, I'm using my personal notebook, and I may well continue to do that. We've got an additional staff person that's coming on. I may end up using that computer to that purchase to give that to do that. But we're still managing and there was all sorts of things that we didn't spend all of the parks money last year. So
Right.
we spend money prudently and as wisely as there. So it may be that
And-
his $500 doesn't get spent on supplies, it gets used elsewhere to help keep our totals together. And that's part of why I didn't. No, you
And I
don't get
guess
to
to
do
me,
that.
that comes into you managing staff, you know, and saying, you know, do you really need to, you know, order a new microwave, or do you really need to order a new mini fridge, or, you know, what are you buying with this?
And
you
we
know,
have,
or
and
do
we
you
have
need to-
had conversations about that, from ceiling fans to lights to air,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So those conversations have taken place, but I also elected, and part of it was intentional, part of it was timing, but there was a significant part of it that was intentional. I'm not micromanaging. There were things, so like, the judge is a specific one that did come up, and it ultimately left, but the conversation happened, because there was two concerns that raised to that. One, why is this up? B, why does it match the rest of the office? And C, when it came to actual purchasing, you did all of your purchasing in June. Well, because that's what I do. Why? And that to me is you're spending your money at the last minute because you didn't need to do it. So one of the things
So
that
you're
he has
spending
been
it
advised of.
so you don't lose it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and well, and again, part of why we're gonna have this sheet and review it on a monthly basis, department head by department head. And again, this is that position that I'm looking to bring in to be able to sit down and say, where are you on this? Why haven't you not spent any of your office supplies yet? Because I've had the conversation, next year, pace your office supply purchases. It makes more sense, it's easier to explain. It's when you purchase it all at once in June that it raises questions,
Yeah.
not only from the public, but from our own office.
Right.
Why is he using more paper than us? Why is it all getting purchased in June?
What are your thoughts on that, Doug?
Well, one of the most effective, measurements I used, I guess, is, you know, you've given me your budget. Here's how it compares to last year. Here's where you're going in the future. And the important thing is going forward, month to month. Okay, if you exceeded your budget, be prepared to explain it. But also, and just as important, if you were under your budget, be prepared to explain why. In other words, don't just be tighten your budget and, hey, I did good, I didn't meet my budget. No, that's not it. You gotta know where your expenses are, where you're over, why you're over, and where you're under, and why you're under, so that you can move forward.
And I think this is one of the things that this format has given us is we've got an easier tool to have that conversation.
Right, because it shows right there
On,
your percentages, and it shows the budget and the amount right there, if you went over or under what you didn't spend.
It is a good format.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is different than last year, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
This is, yeah.
This is a new, yeah,
this
it's
is
super
a tool,
helpful.
this is
Yeah,
based.
I won't do that spreadsheet that I would do like the month-to-month stuff, because
Yeah.
this does it for me.
Yeah.
Automatically.
Yeah,
And
no,
this
great.
was a new thing that we learned was in here, and we kind of played with it, and we kind of go, how do we make it work for us? But
Right.
as we're getting here, it's kind of, oh, this is kind of nice because
Right,
we
and,
can use it as a monthly management tool.
Yeah.
and some of it, it's understandable if it didn't get spent, like plumbing repair, yay, we didn't have any
Oh,
problems,
and,
you
and,
know?
and you'll absolutely
It's like-
see that. So like
Yeah.
in Public Works,
Yeah.
one of the numbers that came up last time was we've got like $40,000 or $50,000 in professional services for fixing stuff that breaks.
Yeah,
If it doesn't break, yay us.
yeah, but you
And,
still have it
and,
budgeted.
and so we'll do that. And another one, Chief Schrock, love Chief Schrock. He does all sorts of things wonderfully well. Managing a budget is not something that somebody has necessarily sat down and taught him how to do, and that's not a fault on him. That in fact, if anything, that falls to me, right? I need to better manage that, but we needed the tools so that I can do that. To sit down and say,
Mhm.
you're over here, you're over here, you're over here, and then to go back to
Yeah.
Doug's question, that gives us the ability as we sit down, the whole goal of this process, and I've said this several times over the last several months, next year's budgeting process should be a breeze. Because we've done this, and so why are you, well, why are you over, why are you under? As we get there, we should already know from practice what we need to change and where we need to change it, and why we
Right.
need to change it.
And I mean, some things are just going up, like every single one of these postage goes up, you know, and so we're always having to increase that, but, you know, but it's just, yeah, I think it's just, explaining it.
You do have to be careful if somebody hasn't spent their money, that they go out and spend it intentionally so they don't lose it. That's not
That's-
good.
yeah,
That's what
oh,
we're
yeah,
talking about with-
absolutely, yeah,
And
that's what I mean.
that has been communicated that is not the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is not a use it or lose it. You have a question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Would this be an appropriate time, I think this, wage chart that is in here is really awesome, because that is a huge
Right.
percentage of our budget. And so, I had some just general questions and specific questions on this. Would now be a good time to ask those?
Yeah, so let me offer a little, and part of this goes back to public comment tonight too, because I anticipate that there's gonna be some armchair quarterbacks. So this is a public information that's been asked for and stuff, and I think it was you who had initially asked for just the percentages breakdown of where it's coming.
Mhm.
Oh, it was Chelsea, sorry. So it was Chelsea had asked for it, and I went ahead and requested that Lonnie go ahead and put the salaries in as well. And again, it's by titles, it's not by positions. What I can say in anticipation of is that all of the union positions, we have basically done a wage comparison. There was part of the negotiations, which goes back to another question from Doug that we can get to. All of the wage negotiation conversations as far as what their salaries are, we did direct comparisons to other cities. So that is not every position in here. So for instance, I haven't done department heads. I haven't done, front office staff. But all of the public works stuff and all of the police, we did multi-city comparisons too. So
And we're in
with
there.
that,
Okay.
yeah.
That's helpful to know. My first question is, like, for loaded wages, I know some of these are not, like council, we don't have any load on ours, but, and probably the mayor.
includes, benefits.
Yeah,
And what-
it's the total output we put for that employee.
And then, so benefits including what?
Salary, our
The salary.
insurance,
Health insurance?
retirement, yeah,
Health
everything.
insurance, retirement,
Does it include,
is there like a 401K?
or,
No, we do a
So
pension.
those ones don't include retirement, because that's, retirement, those ones, because because of retirement, it comes out of different funds.
Okay.
So, but those are the loaded without retirement, so.
so, but
does
do
health
you
in-
have,
is health
Okay, so
insurance the
it's-
only
it's-
benefit then?
It's
Do you
all
have
an
me-
asterisk.
do you have Medicare and Social Security?
Yeah, so
So those are included in
those
that?
are included.
Okay,
The only
okay.
thing that is not is retirement.
okay,
Okay, so health insurance, Medicare,
Social Security,
and Social Security. So, and, Social Security is what, like 6%?
7.5.
7.5.
Health insurance. So what, roughly, if you look at $100,000 in a loaded wage, what
What
It's like 20,
percentage?
of
it's
that
like
is the
25% of
load?
it is,
Oh.
pays for
We
everything else?
can find out
But
tonight.
it's gonna be different for everybody, because depending on what they have for insurance, if they have family coverage, it's gonna show a lot more.
Oh.
Yeah.
If they have only, if, like, for instance, for me, it's just me. That's, the
But-
city only covers me.
But-
But the city, per our insurance and our benefits, we pay 60% of dependents.
Okay.
So, somebody, an employee that has the family coverage, their wage
There's
is
a-
gonna be way higher than somebody like
Well,
me that's just.
But I wonder, isn't it
Well,
like 25 to 35%, or there's a,
I think 30 to 40 is a better number.
On the.
Look,
Yeah, if you're
we could-
including health
we could do-
insurance.
I'm just
and I
curious
need to
for
put
the-
an asterisk because retirement does need to be calculated into that somehow,
I'll
but,
double check and make sure.
and I was assuming it was, but.
Well, but when I just did it to begin with, I just had percentages, and then you had asked me
I-
to put the loaded, and when I grabbed it off of my spreadsheet, that is the spreadsheet I use to plug in everybody's salary, because retirement is separate.
Yeah, okay.
So that's why.
So that's what, so that didn't include, so what it is the number that's divided across those
If you
percentages
guys want me to
accurately.
update it before tonight.
No, I'm looking at
No,
it
it's fine.
because the reality is where it started was the percentages, and that is the number that's separated by the thirds. all the way
And
across.
I really, you know,
I can
I'm
just
fine
speak
with
to it, so I'll
retirement,
correct that.
I'm fine with retirement being separate, because it's
Because
hard
it's
enough.
not part of that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that it says loaded wages, but I think when we're sharing these with the public, we need to make sure people know that it includes their health insurance, their,
Yeah, and they're
Their
not looking at
Social
Lonnie
Security,
going,
their
"Geez, you're
Medicare."
making $110,000.
yeah,
Like,
I mean,
uh,
I'm no, I'm like, God,
You're right, it should be noted.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because they
Well,
don't know what,
we-
it's just loaded wages, but they don't know what that means.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I'll.
And
I
health
either
insurance adds a huge amount
maybe,
onto it.
Lonnie, if you could look at like the lowest load versus the highest load, and you probably know who those people are in your head, and just give us a percentage of whether it's 30 to 40, or if it's 25 to 45, and just so we've got a general idea
Yeah,
of
because
what
people
that
are like,
is.
God, you know, I'm gonna go work for the city.
And then,
Well, it's really good, because I got a lot of people talking about how they don't want to, and part of it is, I want, and Lonnie, last year, they put together kind of a sheet for everybody to let people know what they are getting.
Yeah,
Because there's a lot of people that are, oh, with me, and then you have, and there are people that we have because they went looking other places else and found out that their insurance wasn't as good, or that it was gonna cost them more.
That's the biggest driving factor. A lot of people, when they go to a job interview, that's their biggest concern. How much is health coverage?
Mhm.
And that's your biggest cost.
Mhm.
And I might be short on the 40%.
So Lonnie, I like that, if you would just pick, in your mind, pick out who you think is like a prime example of what the highest and the lowest would be, so that I can say and again, not including retirement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that'd be.
but then it'll just be, the range is from here to here, asterisk, not including requirement.
Just
And
not
I'll
clear.
explain that tonight in that public presentation of what's there. And I fully anticipate, by the way, that we are gonna get slammed with, how come our librarian is the richest librarian in the state? How
That's
come
what
our
I'm trying to
city clerk
avoid,
is the-
Yeah.
is that, and there's a couple.
well, and we,
And it's gonna
we
be
are
on me to
only
shut that
paying,
down.
well, and we're only paying so much into the budget. We don't, you know, we don't set her salary.
Well, and
either.
I answered that at our last budget meeting, or a budget presentation. That was
Yeah.
one of the questions that was brought up, and I did talk to Jody, I talked to a number of other people, and, I thought gave a suitable answer to that. But, and I can bring it up again.
Well, going back to Lonnie's comment, there's so many differences. Dave, I'm not sure the benefit of saying, well, we got this guy at 75% and this guy at 10%.
Well, just a range.
Let's
Just a
find out what the
range.
range is, because if it is a 10 or 15% range, it's worth mentioning. If it's larger than that,
Well, I
then
mean, the
we can
range,
say it's
the
such a
range is gonna be exactly that, a big block. So what is the point of saying you
I
got
don't
some
know,
up here and some
I
up
don't know
here?
how big that range really is. That's what I'm saying. But it's not gonna be a hard exercise to find out.
Yeah.
And how we relay the information, that, I guess, in fairness, what we're trying to do to an extent is anticipate the questions and have a valid answer. What I wanted to do is, I should have been smart enough to think of that.
Well,
I'll have enough of those without trying.
again, if you can quantify the range, that's fine.
I
I would stay
yeah.
away from the extreme.
I would say if you can just mention that, just so you know, loaded wages for all of these salaries includes health insurance, Social Security, Medicare, and as we all know, health insurance is extremely expensive,
Yep,
period.
I
You
think
just
I
leave it
agree with
there.
that.
People know that,
it's taxes and insurance, and insurance is the big part of it,
it is,
period.
yeah. If you, yeah.
Can I ask a couple other
Yeah,
questions?
go ahead.
And one of these I can ask after the meeting, just to,
Oh.
so where, the retirement, where is that noted in the budget then?
The PRS,
PER?
yes, so there's the.
Okay, for each,
MPORs,
Yeah.
department?
Yeah, there's the MPORs and PRS. MPORs is police only, because the city actually has to pay a higher percentage for the police department, but they don't pay into social security.
Oh,
So-
interesting.
No. And
How did they get out of that?
Yeah, what do they,
It's, I don't know.
do they get to get Social
No, they
Security
have,
retire?
no, they don't get to collect it
They
though
don't get
either.
to collect it. So-
When they retire, they only
So-
get their police
For
retirement.
the employees?
They don't get social security?
When they retire, no, they only get, because they didn't pay into it. They get a police retirement fund,
Yeah.
and they have to work for 20 years before they can collect on it, right? So
Yeah, and then-
it's actually
And
not
then they
that,
have a different, like Scott said, it's a drop program, so once you hit your 20 years, there's an ability for another 2 years that you can put into a drop program that adds to your, it's kind of confusing. But
Yeah.
the police do have a very, very good retirement system, but they just don't pay into social security.
Interesting. I didn't
So
know.
the city does pay a
So-
higher percentage.
So
for
going,
them.
so going back to Chris's question, like, what's the specific line item on here that you,
It would be, but it's under the fund.
is it under general fund or it's
No.
under a?
It's under the PRS fund and the MPORS fund.
There it is.
Those are the other two funds.
employer
that-
contribution.
Page what?
17.
Okay.
Those are the ones that receive mills as well. Because remember, there's 5 altogether, but the four funds that get mill money, or tax.
Oh, I'm going opposite way here. 17.
What is your retirement? Is it like a public employee retirement fund or
Yes.
something like that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I was just
So
wanting to
that's
make sure.
everybody's right there, 115, or 121?
Yeah, 121, yeah.
Okay.
And then on the police one, it's,
And is that the next page? Yes, law enforcement.
yeah, so that's where your retirement is put.
Okay.
So, and do you have to work 20 years before you can collect out of that, even though you paid into it?
MPORS,
Or is it different?
so 5 years is vested for the
Oh,
PRS.
okay, yeah,
MPORS, I'm not sure what their vested is, but
Okay.
they can draw at 20, whereas
Okay.
PRS is 30.
okay, just curious.
Okay. So
Just
vesting
curious.
of 5 years, it's a long time.
That's pretty standard in
I
corporate.
know, but that's,
Like, you have to work 5 years before, you're always vested in what you put in,
yeah.
but to get vested
Right.
in
Your
what,
match.
your match, usually it's typically 5 years.
Our company
Yeah.
just switched to 1 year,
Oh,
which,
really?
yeah, which I thought was awesome, for, for my,
Wow,
for my market,
Yeah,
or my employee base.
yeah.
That was
that's
great.
really unusual.
I know.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so my other question, and I can ask you this after, is I just wanted to put names to titles, because I don't know, I know you're city clerk, I know, Danae is deputy clerk, utility clerk is,
That's why I kinda kept it vague, because it changes. So, I mean, if we had somebody leave, that's why we just use the.
Yeah, right, but right now, I just want to like put names to titles. Planning assistant,
Is not hired
It's
yet.
not hired.
Not
That's,
hired yet.
that's an open position, so.
But it's budgeted.
clerk assistant and utility clerk, is that like Monica
Well,
and?
it is utility and Chrissy is our.
But Monica just changed too, so Monica was previously
The clerk assistant,
the clerk assistant.
okay. And then city attorney, librarian, and library aide,
And there
okay.
was some,
Home streets foreman, I think then that answers my question, because I was like, do we have a planning assistant? But that is
No.
what we're hiring for, and then.
there's another position that's not there.
All right.
And then there is that other seat. I don't know how I
What's
said that one.
CCD? Admin assistant.
That's the
Community development,
Community development, I think.
yeah.
Is that Brian?
Admin, no,
No.
that's the position that isn't hired yet.
So there's.
That's the person who will make sure spreadsheets get put together and that the airport agreement gets done when Dave's due, so anything
So that's gonna
that
be
I
your
get-
assistant,
Yes,
basically.
that's my assistant.
And, okay.
Basically, it's our ability to hire a city
A city manager,
manager.
okay.
Yep.
And
that's-
where are you in that process, if you don't mind me asking?
I haven't touched it in a month or three, but I'd like to do it very, very soon, once we have a budget to do it.
Great.
So it's kind of like, it's like the airport thing, which is another thing that came up, that's the end of this month, is what we put in there. You know what, I haven't touched it in a month. We sat down, I did it for a month, but I literally haven't. Basically, the first 3 hours of my day, between 4 and 7 o'clock is when I get
AM?
stuff, is when I get stuff done.
What's wrong with you?
And once anywhere from 7 to 9 hits, my day is dictated by the queue. You know, it's, I don't really, and so by having a person in, not only do they have that expertise, but now we have somebody who's paid to go out and get some of that stuff done, to shorten our turnaround time on things. Because like,
Be your
right,
clone,
Right.
pardon?
to be your clone.
So,
Yeah.
we're almost out of time,
Yeah.
but did anybody have any
Thank you
more
for-
questions on the budget that need to be,
To
that
give me
they want?
appropriate heads
Yeah,
up to be prepared for
for
tonight.
tonight, yeah.
I will let you know, I'm gonna spend today looking over this, so.
And feel free to reach out real time, because like I said, to me, I'm looking at this as an opportunity to present it well in the absence of a fully fleshed out slide deck presentation. Which is still coming, because it's still, I think it's important because we need to have the conversation about how much of our budget is going to fire and police, and do we want to allow resort tax to help do that? We want to have the discussion about annexing into the fire thing. Those are both things that are public decisions, but we have to give them the right information. It's like, hey, do you want to, A, cut services, B, vote to raise taxes on yourself, or C, vote to change the resort tax to be used for things that it can't currently be used for? And before, the conversation was, no, we don't want to use resort tax to pay any salaries. Okay, so do you want us to raise your taxes, or do you want to have less police and fire? Or less police, because fire we're statutorily driven to. We don't have a flex there. And the
Well,
answer,
and we
the
just
answer
voted to
is,
fund 24/7 police coverage.
pardon?
And we just voted to fund,
No, you guys did a
24/7.
resolution to drive that.
For this
So we built
next
it in, and we
levy,
built that into this
next-
budget.
Yeah, just,
right,
yeah.
so.
And I think that is in line with the community sentiment, so. But if you go through and look at the general fund and how much, you know, our public works is paid out of enterprise funds, or, you know, but if you look at our front office, after we pay police and fire, look how much of our front office is paid from other funds.
All of it.
And that's justifiable, that's there, but we have a, you know, well, there's portions, but, because,
Well, I meant
yeah.
as far as, like, the only thing taxes that our tax collection for general fund goes towards is public health and safety, fire
Yeah.
and police. That's all where our tax money goes to. Everything else is covered by fees and other funds.
Okay. Anything else?
That's a really good intro to the budget, I think.
yeah.
The general fund.
And, yeah, people don't realize that your property taxes, 13% goes to the city.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at that resolution of $25 million, there's small amount of that 25 million that's actually property taxes.
Yeah.
I don't think that's even a million.
It's not even a million.
Not even a million.
Yeah.
Well, but I'm counting the PERs going into that too.
Right here, 975.
Yeah, but that's not all, oh, that is,
Yeah, that's all the
Yeah.
tax revenue we get. Do you want that?
no, I'll print my copy of it.
It just comes out.
975, 192.
And then, just to finish it up, Doug, you had, part of the questions you had asked was the resort tax, what was the difference in the resort tax? And it's a two-part fold, so yes, our resort tax changes from year to year, but we also intentionally build in a bubble cushion that, because if we don't, we have to give it back, we don't get to use it.
Right.
And so I think that answers your question.
Says a lot.
Yeah, if you want a copy of this, I don't know, it's
It doesn't
fairly-
include the 9,000 we did for sustainability in that, but other than that, it's
Do
fairly.
you have an updated copy of that?
We
We
did,
know-
it didn't update to do that, so there is an updated copy of that.
All right.
It's a good format.
Yeah,
I'll
it
make
is
you a
nice and
copy of that.
simple.
You
Yeah.
can have
If you
that.
want a copy of it, you're welcome to make a
That
copy.
sums it up real well, doesn't it?
Yeah. Tom,
Do you want your copy with your notes on it? I have my copy with my notes on it somewhere, but,
Yeah, sure, you wanna, you can make copies for everybody.
let me just double check.
You might not understand my notes, I don't.
The only participants here are us. Doug, any other questions you had? And like I said, tonight, and that discussion can be there tonight, and you guys have full ability to respond and change, and you could do goofy stuff. You could say, you get $50 for police, and if you know, we're gonna have to, I have to manage to that, but this is the proposal that then the legislative body signs off on.
Well, to your point of not micromanaging, you guys know your budget, and
Yeah, I mean,
it's our job to,
I don't
No,
necessarily
we're
want to
gonna
go
ask
through line,
questions, ask
I don't
questions.
necessarily want to go through line by
No,
line,
either.
cutting things at all. But it's just, I guess council just wants the assurance that people aren't just spending it to spend it.
yeah. So
And-
I'll
And that's
probably
up to
be reaching out
you,
if I
and
find-
then Doug, we'll relay that
I will
on
tell
to
you
you.
that people are not spending it just to spending it, and they
No.
will now be having a monthly conversation.
Yeah.
And whether that is me or that person that we hire with the financial.
But that's the important thing,
Yeah.
is the follow-up, the month to month. That's
Yeah.
what's been missing in previous,
And well, we've got better tools to do it now.
yeah, it all fits together.
We have the same tools, but now you know how to use them now.
If you wanna say, I'm gonna call this report a new tool that we found a tool that we didn't know was hiding in the back of our
Right
toolbox.
there.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Pennies make
That
dollars.
way don't get Lonnie mad at me, right? If I just say we found a new tool we didn't know was hiding in the back of our toolbox, is that okay to do it? Okay.
Well, it's a complicated
It is.
software system.
And I'm sure there's still
Well,
tons of
and
stuff
it-
that we're
it-
not into.
Okay.
It
How many
costs money,
Yeah, I wanted to
basically
know.
your time, to learn that system,
You
know,
want a copy
so
of this, Dave?
it doesn't necessarily,
Dave, you want a copy of this?
Yeah, I'll take a copy of your notes too. Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else?
yeah, we're adjourned, sorry,
Meeting adjourned.
meeting adjourned.